Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Ali Singer, the founder and CEO of YogaHub, a startup dedicated to connecting people with yoga classes wherever they live, work, and travel. Her journey with yoga began while studying business and communications at Northeastern University in her home state of Massachusetts. What started as a fitness routine quickly evolved into a profound practice that brought clarity, calm, and focus into her life, eventually leading her to complete her first teacher training in 2013. Allie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ashley. Glad to be here.
Yes, I am glad to have you here, especially because we have not had anyone in the yoga world yet on the show. So I think it'll be a really fun episode being able to highlight you and what you do. And so that's where I really love to start off is by giving you the opportunity to share with our listeners more about yourself and what Yoga Hub is.
Yeah, sounds good. I got into yoga when I was in college at Northeastern. I wanted to stay physically fit and active. I had always been into exercise and working out. So I was looking for a way to do that and also just be in a space where I could stay committed to the workout. So what brought me in for fitness actually got me hooked. My first yoga class was a Bikram yoga class, and it's hot power yoga. I think they heat the room to around 104 degrees. But it was through that experience, that extreme physical intensity, and also the meditative aspects that allowed me to feel so great, off the mat. Beyond the practice, and also get in touch with the elements and of yoga beyond the physical poses. Um, I could probably ramble about that for a while, but I got started for fitness and stayed hooked because it really delivered on all the promises of just stress relief.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like if I don't start my day with any form of movement, it really ends up throwing me off. And of course, there's so many studies that are linked to moving your body and productivity and success and all of that stuff. So it's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorite teachers has this saying that goes, if you can't get out of your head, get into your body. And
Mm,
it's so important just to make it a routine because it's really easy to let it slip. Even just 10 minutes a day can make a huge impact.
totally. And so I'm curious to hear what it was like starting Yoga Hub. Like, did you start it while you were in school or even right out of school? Did you have another career in between? Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I have always been entrepreneurial minded and looking for ways to solve problems, start a business, add some value, and create something sustainable that lives outside of myself. My dad's an entrepreneur, so I get it from him where it's kind of a personality thing, one, liking to be my own boss, and two, just having ideas and innovation and always seeking to improve. And so even while I was in college or before college, I was looking for opportunities to start a business and getting a feel for what kind of industry I'd be interested in. And so it was actually my dad who brought it up to me saying, "Oh, I think a yoga franchise would be really cool." And this is even before I got into yoga. But we were just, chatting and sharing ideas. And I hadn't heard much about yoga except that it was something that was really good for the mind and body. And I knew that it might be something that I'm interested in.
Mhm.
So he planted that seed long before I took my first class. But then when I started taking classes and started to really enjoy it, I still had that idea in the back of my mind, oh, maybe this is something that I could build a business around. And the deeper I got into yoga and the more I fell in love with it, the more ideas I had around a yoga business. I did my first teacher training, and that's where I saw a lot of opportunity too, because there's a lot of for yoga teachers, it's hard. And there's a lot of ways that I envision helping them through my business, Yoga Hub. And so we're still working towards that right now, along with corporate wellness. But before Yoga Hub, I was doing all sorts of other things like bartending. I did that through college. I had been working in the restaurant industry for 10 years or so. So that hospitality element really infuses its way into myself and my business. I also did some real estate with property rentals and um, property management. But then in 2015, I decided to quit all my other jobs, which I had been doing simultaneously, um, in order to focus on building my business. So I started teaching yoga full time, and then that's when I first cold called my first hotel. That was the first corporate booking. And that's kind of when I say Yoga Hub was born,
Mm.
because that's when I started using the model. And between 2015 and now, I've really just tried a whole bunch of different things for bringing yoga to different environments. First, I started with hotels, bringing classes to their guests and staff and conferences on site. Then we got a lot of inbound leads from offices through our website, a lot more from independent conferences and convention centers and residences. We also work with the Boston Public Library and other branch locations. So you name it, we found a way to bring yoga there. Um, yeah, I quit teaching full time in 2020 when my business really picked up.
Mhm.
But I still teach from time to time, but now mostly focused on administrating the back end of things.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that probably seems like it was a little bit challenging for you, is just juggling like the teaching piece and then also trying to build up Yoga Hub specifically. And so I'm curious to hear how you knew when it was time to let go ultimately. And even going back to what you mentioned earlier about when you had kind of let go out of all the jobs that you had working at a restaurant and doing real estate and whatnot to go full force. I always love asking that question to our guests because that's where a lot of our audience members are right now, is they're kind of juggling a few different things and they're like, when do I let go and just go all in on my own thing?
It's such a great question, and it's so hard to do, especially because for me, I was making a really good living bartending, and it was
Mhm.
fun. And my job that I had at the time was very easy, at least in the restaurant industry. I was, done every night before 11 p.m., and my schedule was super flexible. I loved it. And I didn't want to stop, but I knew that I really had to channel all my focus into the thing that I wanted to grow.
Mhm.
And so, with that and all the other times that I had to make a decision to move on and to let something go, I did it before I was ready and just decided to take a leap. When I first took that leap and quit my other jobs, I was living on my own. Well, no, actually, I had roommates, and and the risk was pretty low. So, I didn't have a family yet. I didn't really have anyone but myself to answer to in case things went wrong. And it's funny because I was talking to my family about this yesterday, where it feels like such a different world that we're in now that we have a kid and we have another one expected on the way soon. And it's it feels like there's a lot much more responsibility, and feels like you can't really take the same risks that I would take before, but
Mhm.
I still do. It's the only way to go because I felt like I would never truly have done what I did unless I did take the leap before I was ready.
Totally.
Um, Even when I went from full-time teaching to managing Yoga Hub full-time, that was a huge risk, and the universe kind of made its decision for me because it was during the pandemic, and
Oh, yeah.
um, I hadn't been taking any salary or any income from Yoga Hub. I was just building it as a side hustle
Mhm.
and using my yoga teaching income to fund my life. But then my all of my revenue sources from teaching just went away over the course of 2 weeks. And it
Mhm.
was pretty scary and kind of miserable. But then once I got over that and realized how much I had saved up from Yoga Hub over time, it allowed me to give myself a runway and just jump into that. And I haven't looked back.
I love that. And I especially love what you shared about like just kind of starting before you're ready, because I feel like there never is going to be a perfect time to do anything in life. Like there's always going to be one thing or one reason that's telling you why you shouldn't do something. So you might as well just do it anyway because the stars are truly never going to align the way that you'd like them to.
Yeah, there's a really great, I think it's from Y Combinator, one of their resources. Oh no, disciplined entrepreneurship. It's a model of looking at I don't know where it's from. If one of your listeners know, they can remind me of where I found this. I'll probably figure it out after the call and I can let you know. But startups can measure their progress not in terms of revenue, but in terms of learning and how quickly
Mm,
did you learn and how fast did you learn. And so if you're taking a leap, then you're guaranteed gonna learn something. And that's how you can measure your success in the early stages because it can take a very long time to make revenue.
yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me too of I'm totally gonna like butcher this quote, but something along the lines of like any time you fail, it's really just learning. Like you're learning something when things fail or things don't work out the way that you'd like them to. So I love that reminder of not necessarily looking at the money, but more so looking at what you've learned and how you've improved along the way.
Yeah, it's hard to remember when you're in the moment and of learning a hard lesson. It just hurts a little bit, but
Yeah.
then after you look back and think, wow, I really made some progress.
Totally. And so now I'd love to hear for listeners who might not be familiar with Yoga Hub, could you give an overview of what it is and what you offer through it?
Yeah, so we bring yoga and other types of wellness classes, Pilates, Zumba, Run Club, you name it, to people where they live and where they work.
Hmm.
So, offices, both on-site and virtual, conferences, hotels, residences, and then also some public spaces like libraries or parks. Basically, anywhere where people gather, we'll bring the wellness experience to them.
I love
I
that.
yeah, it's worked out pretty well. I contract a team of teachers. I started by teaching all the classes myself, and then I started
Mhm.
hiring out my yoga teacher friends who I thought were really great at what they do. And now it's just continued to grow where I contract the area's top yoga professionals to create really incredible experiences.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that was one thing I was wondering is if you're primarily like Massachusetts or Boston focused, or if you've been able to expand to other cities across the country based on, like you said, being able to fit the need of places that are looking for yoga and also being able to bring in those teachers.
Yeah, we're primarily based in Boston, but we brought classes all over the US.
Oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so, for anyone listening who, like, maybe they're an organization or an institution or a company that is looking to work with Yoga Hub for whatever they have planned, could you talk more about how they could get started with that?
Yeah, so we are at yogahub.life on the web and
Mhm.
also yogahub.life on social media. They could also reach out to me directly. Instant booking form is on the way soon, but you'd start with just letting us know what you're all about, what you're interested in. You could book a single session, a package of classes, or ongoing weekly classes, whether that's once a week, twice, or up to 7 days a week, even more if you want. And we'll learn a little bit about your audience and find a best fit teacher who will come there on a regular basis, if that's the frequency of your program, to build relationships and also help students learn and progress from week to week, whether that's in yoga or any other one of the fitness modalities that we offer. Um, Myself and my administrative team will manage the booking on the back end, so it's really
Mhm.
seamless and you don't have to worry about ever missing a class. We'll find a substitute teacher if your teacher can't make it to class or if they move away, then we'll find a replacement. And we also have a booking platform that enables students to sign up for class. It sends automated reminders to keep them motivated and keep them coming back to class again and again.
Amazing. And at the time of this recording, we're closer towards the end of June, and I believe that you just had a big event happen. Is that right?
Yeah, so June 21st is International Yoga Day, and this year we hosted an event in Post Office Square that was a morning of free yoga classes, as well as Reiki and breathing techniques and guided journaling and all sorts of wellness activities for people to come in and enjoy.
That's amazing. And so I'm curious to hear, of course, it aligns with International Yoga Day, but what was that like kind of having that idea come to you and then bringing it to fruition? It looked like an incredible event from what I saw with a really great turnout.
Yeah, it was. Well, we first hosted a Yoga Day event in actually 2014. This is early yoga days, yoga hub days for me. But over the years, we've done a little something for Yoga Day, not consistently every year. But during the pandemic in 2020, we did a virtual event. In 2018, we did a big one in Copley Square with a couple of other yoga business partners like Yoga for Humanity. And so this year, I wanted to host another event that just had the heart of Yoga Day behind it, which is really all about community and well-being for all, and just creating a space that is really accessible for participants to experience yoga and feel the benefits of the practice without having to carve out too much time from their day or go to a yoga studio. And I think we did that.
Yeah. And I like that point that you mentioned too about accessibility, because I think that's one thing that's really big and important as you've been able to prioritize is knowing for anyone that no matter what type of body you have, or whether you have never done yoga before or have done it for years, like anyone can really get in and get started.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of people are, I think the biggest reservation people have about coming to their first practice is just not knowing what to do. They don't want to be
Mhm.
the only one in the room who just, doesn't really know the drill. Um, and that happens to everyone. Everyone's a first timer at some point, but the yoga community is a generally very welcoming space, and no one's here to judge, and everyone just enjoys experiencing a practice together. Um, yeah, the yoga studio is a great place, but there's other ways that you could experience yoga, even if even if you don't feel comfortable yet going into a yoga studio, you could try an online class.
Definitely, and just really being able to start out. I've done a lot of yoga over the past few months, and I feel like that's one thing I've really appreciated is just like the adaptability when going to a class, is knowing that every teacher is like, do what feels good to your body. If a move doesn't feel good, like be able to adapt and do what works for you. And so I think it shows in what you've done with Yoga Hub, just really having that sense of welcoming and community, I think is really wonderful for anyone to get started.
Yeah, one of the major things that I like about Yoga Hub's offer is that it brings classes to different populations that wouldn't normally go to a yoga studio.
Mhm.
Um, for example, a lot of yoga studio classes are fitness oriented, which is great. Personally, I love it. And I think for anyone who really wants a workout, that's a great way to get introduced to a lifelong practice that will serve you forever. But for older populations, people like my parents, for example, they're very active and they're physically capable of everything, but they don't necessarily want to do a million chaturangas, which are basically yoga's form of push-ups,
Yeah.
or get up and down from the floor, all practice. So, and that's a demographic that we get to reach a lot through Yoga Hub classes, is active older adults who want to stay mobile and fit, but don't necessarily want that intense fitness aspect to it.
Totally. And with our listeners being a lot of busy professionals, whether they work for a 9 to 5 or they have their own business, yoga is definitely something that will benefit them in their lives as a professional with self-care and whatnot. And so I'd love to hear from your expertise and your perspective why yoga is a great practice to incorporate for anyone who is really looking to take some care of themselves and also fill up their own cups.
Yeah, I mean, as a founder, I use yoga and other types of wellness techniques all the time to counteract the stresses of work that are just endless. So whether it's a breathing technique, like, I mean, we can talk about one right now. It's a simple ratio breath. Just take twice as long to exhale as you do to inhale. See, I see you doing it right
I know, I was like, I'm gonna
now.
practice.
Yeah, sometimes just thinking about your breath, you'll notice that your breath naturally changes its rhythm. And the
Mhm,
breath is the one thing that is both happening automatically all the time. It's more important for our lives than food, but
mhm.
it's also within your ability to control your breathing. So, how powerful is it when you, instead of just letting your breath happen to you, just breathe mindfully, and you can really boost your energy levels, or you can find release, or whatever it is that your body is needing on any given day. It gives you a vehicle to tap into what that need is and deliver instantly. So it's an experiential practice. I think that anyone who's curious about what it can do um, needs nothing more than to try a class with a great teacher and then see how it feels. I add that part about a great teacher because that's also one of the reasons why I started Yoga Hub, because your teacher will make or break your yoga experience. It's
Totally.
yeah, it's the difference between feeling clueless about what's going on in class or feeling like you wasted an hour and or on the other side, coming out of practice feeling like a totally different person in the best possible way. Like the
Mhm.
problems that were weighing on you just don't even exist anymore. Or you can be aware of them, but not have the same weight on your shoulders.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a really good point, what you mentioned about having a really great teacher to guide you through this. And I know that's one thing that you've prioritized is working with really great teachers through Yoga Hub. And so I'm curious to hear if you have like a certain vetting process or onboarding process or kind of what your flow is for making sure that you find the right fit to teach these classes.
It's definitely a challenge.
Hmm.
And down the road, or even in the pipeline right now, we're building a teacher training program so that we can reach people from the very beginning of their teaching journey, and advise them on best practices, not just the techniques of yoga, but also the public speaking element of it, because so much of being a great teacher has to do with how you deliver something and not
Hmm.
necessarily what you know. So when we're vetting teachers, we're looking for that as well as their educational background, like who they studied with and when did they originally become certified, and also how many hours of experience do they have? Have you been teaching every day, 5 times a day for the last year? Or have you been teaching once a month for the last 3 years? It
Hmm.
makes a big difference the more you teach,
Hmm.
the more fluent you become in this practice.
Absolutely. And I think that's so cool to hear about the teacher training that you're incorporating into this. And so I'd love to hear more about that. I know you mentioned it's going to be a great way to bring teachers into Yoga Hub, but what else might have kind of initiated that idea or what made you want to bring it to life?
I've wanted to do this since starting Yoga Hub because one of the main reasons for Yoga Hub is to create higher standards for teachers.
Mm,
And so the existing credentialing agency is there, but amongst industry professionals, really not well liked. They don't add a lot of value, but they do collect your fees, and they're kind of the there are some alternatives, but they're not very widely recognized. So they're kind of there for lack of something better.
mhm,
So I would like Yoga Hub to be that something better, where we're building a network of teachers, and its trust is built on that network of teachers. So
mhm,
as it is now, a lot of teachers who I think I mentioned in our vetting process, we look at who they studied with,
mhm.
and that's a lineage context
Yeah.
where some teachers will trace their lineage of study all the way back to yoga's origins. Or Patanjali, he's the quote unquote grandfather of yoga, who wrote the Yoga Sutras, the original yoga text, in around 500 BC. So by tracing a lineage, you can learn more about the authenticity of those um, subjects that they're teaching,
Mhm.
of the techniques that they're teaching.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that's also really unique too. I've never heard of that, like being able to trace it all the way back to that time period and knowing that there's that lineage come to now in 2025.
Yeah, it's not the only important thing, but it is certainly interesting. And amongst yoga teachers, it's something that's very much respected and appreciated.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And so that's an exciting thing to hear about that's coming up is the teacher training. But is there anything else that's going on within Yoga Hub in the coming year that you can share?
So I don't know if it's technically worth share. Well, it's worth sharing for me, and I don't think there's any harm in it. But I'm working with a developer. He's wonderful, and we don't have an official partnership yet. But he's a potential co-founder, and we're going to build technology that supports all of the amazing and wild dreams that I've had for Yoga Hub since the beginning. One of the biggest challenges we're having right now is scaling it
Mm.
because we have that key person syndrome where it's me and our operations manager Daniel who are doing everything by hand, and it's a lot of copy pasting and emailing and manual transcribing of things. So just having the technology to support a scale of growth is going to be huge.
Yes. And I think you mentioned too that you're having another child. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so exciting.
I'm so excited. Yeah, due in early December.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So it sounds like too, with another child on the way, that this kind of developing process or automating process likely will make that take a huge load off your shoulder when that time comes.
That's my goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little scary at the same time because I almost feel like I'm not just wanting it, but needing it.
Hmm.
And even without the expected baby on the way, um, the operations piece is a lot.
Hmm.
And it's a good problem to have because it means that you're growing, but it's a lot. I'm excited to have that automation.
Totally. And I'm curious to hear too how you find the time to work on your business rather than in your business. Like you mentioned too with this automation stuff, that's a great example of working on your business. But sometimes with business owners, and I'm totally guilty of this, like I struggle with actually doing the work and like actually working on the business to improve things. So have you found a process for how you're able to kind of tackle both parts of the puzzle?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like I constantly have to shift my strategy so that I'm
Mhm.
still doing that, because I'll get into the mode where I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it on the regular basis, but then somehow it slips and operations just take front and center, which is not what I want to be doing. Um, so for me, it's just a matter of prioritizing it and doing it first.
Mhm.
It's really compelling to just open the inbox and answer a bunch of emails, or to do the thing that just happened to fall in my lap in that moment. But carving out the time to do the growth and visionary stuff first is what is my strategy. I was noticing your sign in the back there that says get comfortable with the uncomfortable, um, which is awesome because it's been a theme that I've been thinking about over this past week where I was on a call with one of my mentors last week. And we were talking about this conundrum of prioritizing time because we all have so little of it. And he said this thing that is so true that you're always going to gravitate to do the things that are most within the outcome is most within your control,
Mhm.
and are ease in a way easiest to check off your list. But the things that you need to be doing are the things that are making you uncomfortable, where the outcome is not really within your control. It's uncomfortable. So that's my quote of the week that I'm really keeping at my heart center, just to eat the frog, so to speak, and do the uncomfortable thing because those are the things that propel the business forward.
Yes, I love that reminder. And I'm glad that you pointed out that quote that's been on there for like probably 4 years now. And I'm like, I can't change it because I just like it as a reminder too much.
Yeah, the little reminders, they help.
Exactly. Yeah, but that was a great piece of advice that you reshared from your mentors, just being able to do the things where you can't exactly know what the outcome is going to be because it's challenging, but like you said, it usually leads to the biggest rewards when you take the biggest leap.
Yeah, it kind of connects with what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation too, about learning and
Hmm.
measuring your growth in a startup in terms of what did you learn, how fast did you learn it, and by doing things that are uncomfortable and taking the leap, even if it's not quitting your job, it's doing the things that are most uncomfortable. Making a cold call, for example, that's going to propel you so much. Even if you don't close the deal, you'll learn from the prospect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that this has been like a recurring theme of kind of taking the leap and doing things outside of comfort zones. And I'm curious to hear along those lines, like what's a mistake that you might have learned along the way or something you know now in your business that you wish you did differently back then. I always love hearing from business owners kind of pieces that they've learned along the way.
Hmm. Um, it's hard. I think there's no such thing as over communicating. When I'm thinking
Mm,
about working with um, teachers or whoever it may be, or clients even, or my colleagues, sometimes you think that you said the message clear and they have the information, but then turns out they didn't. So
yeah.
over communicating is always a good thing to do and can save some errors. Um, I think I also over the years learned about pricing a lot better through
Hmm.
an iterative process and through the sales conversations that I was having, and was able to fine tune that to get a bit more precise. Um, yeah, those are the first things that came to mind.
I
I'm
love
sure I
it.
could think of a lot more if I really sat down to it, but
Y-
a lot of the things are just very unique to each situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And along those lines, for anyone who's listening to the show who is interested in starting a business in the yoga space specifically, what advice would you have for them with that, just being in the yoga world?
I have so much respect for yoga teachers. It's really, really hard to make it work as a full-time yoga teacher or any fitness professional, really. The same applies. You're working really hard. You're also using your physical body. You not only have to know about your subject, but you have to be really good at marketing.
Hmm.
Um, and you're holding space for your clients energetically, emotionally. There's a performative aspect of it.
Hmm.
Um, so someone looking to start a yoga business, um, I guess I think it's more of a general bit of advice when you're starting a business is to begin with the end in mind
Hmm.
of where do you want to go and what's your exit strategy. Um, Yeah, I don't think I also applaud the teachers who have been teaching for, their whole lifetime and still going. There's one teacher on my team who's been teaching for 40 years and
That's incredible.
she's in her late 60s and just still going strong. I think for a lot of people, it's not something they want to be doing when they're retired.
Hmm.
So I think that kind of aligns with the what's your exit strategy? Um, when you're getting out of the business and how can you scale it too. That's kind of what inspired the yoga hub model for me, where
Hmm.
it's like I love teaching but I also can't be teaching full time. It's really hard, really, really,
Yeah.
really hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now for a fun question. I always love to ask our guests what their favorite local businesses are to support. So I'm curious to hear what yours might be.
Well, I'd have to say it's any yoga teacher out there that's just hustling to make their business work. It's such a grind, and for anyone who's doing it full time, they are truly excellent at what they do because it's a self-filtering process. In order to be able to teach yoga full time, you have to be really good at it, and you also have to be very business savvy.
Hmm.
There's one teacher on my team, Gabriella Mira, and she gets the best reviews from all of her students. They love her. They're asking for her again and again. And she also has a very strong yoga business all on her own. There's some studios out there that will hire you full time, give you benefits and vacation time and stuff like that. But then there's a lot of baggage that goes along with that. Like you can't
Hmm.
really run your own business alongside. So, um, I mean, I still have a incredible respect for people who are teaching full time in that context too. It's just a different way to do it. Um, but yeah, any wellness professional out there who's making it full time, props to you. We love
Love
you.
that. Allie, this has been a really great episode, and I've really enjoyed having you on the show to learn more about you and everything that you're doing at Yoga Hub. And I'd love to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
Yep. So we're yogahub.life on any web browser and then social media, also yogahub.life.
Perfect. And I'll link to those places in the show notes that our listeners can easily click through and connect with you from there. But thank you so much again for coming on today's podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. It's great to be here. Glad to connect.